vision of, what marketing will, be in future. I believe that marketing is going to be the connector, the chief client experience, team, or whatever it is that you want to call it. But I think if they need to excel in the domain that they are in, then look at, be authentic, be agile, and keep on adding ability.
Dipali, very excited and honored to be talking to you as we were just discussing, have followed you and the work that you're doing. And we'll come to something interesting that you do besides the role, the hat that you don at IBM. And then first, I want to ask you, being associated with this iconic, legendary brand IBM, it's present all over the world in so many geographies. The last 18 months have been difficult, and technology has seen an extremely accelerated pace of change, growth. What's the true north metrics for you when it comes to measuring yourself as a company, as an organization, when it comes to serving the enterprises?
So, Shradha, first of all, thanks for having me here. And I have been an admirer of all your work and the fact that you set up your story for such a long time. So it's an absolute honor for me to be here. Now to the question that you asked on IBM. IBM has been focused on building technology, that can help businesses grow and scale. We kind of all know that. But, let me just put it in perspective. From punching cards to mainframes to Watson, to cloud to quantum, just think about it. And for how many years, one thread that I see there is that we've been focused on building technology of the future, one that can reimagine the enterprise, and I think at a certain level reimagine the society. We've been leaders in patents, for example, for many, many years, some 23 odd years. And our core focus has always been in helping enterprises grow. And within that, we do this whole, research in the patent thing. What my observation also is that markets change constantly, and if you look at IBM, it's either been at the center of the disruption or one of the quickest to adapt, so we reorient our research focus, but I think we always have a eye on what's going to happen in the next decade or two, And Shradha, one more thing before, you ask me the next question. This is not just an 18-month story. When I spoke about the punch cards, this has been a history for 110 years. I don't think companies can shift suddenly in 18 months, So this is much before you and I came on the scene. So, if I look at it, IBM has a very customer-centric approach. Innovation at scale is at our DNA. And for the current times, I want to end with a quote from our CEO, Arvind Krishna. He says that we are committed to building with a growing ecosystem of partners an enduring hybrid cloud platform that will serve as a powerful catalyst for innovation for our clients and the world.
IBM India, how have you seen it grow as an R&D center, and also about the, your focus here in India with the enterprises?
Yeah. I have many, many stories to tell, Shradha, and I don't know whether time will be enough. But let me just say that, one is we at IBM have been very actively engaged in working with, the local enterprises in India, and for decades, For example, we've been at the center of the telecom transformation with, large strategic partnerships with the top telcos, through the 2000s. We also are at the nerve center of the transformation that took place in banking, as India's largest banks trust us with building their technology backbone. I can't even give you the names. I can't even do the references of some of the things that we do, At the core, we've been focused on being the organization which is very relevant for the enterprises. We grow with them. We help them scale. We co-create with them as necessary, So I know this term is used more for a consumer context, but we are like the one-stop shop, We play a big role in being able to pull off really large transformational initiatives. For example, we've been working closely with India's largest bank, State Bank of India, to create a consumption ecosystem through mobility, their YONO platform. Now, this is one of the most ambitious forays, done by any bank, I would presume in Asia, and we are their preferred partners. Similarly, in the telecom customer bit, India and abroad, we are building out innovative use cases around 5G, and how to build a disruptive engine for businesses around IoT and connectivity. Gartner says that 46% of communication is expected to become device to device by 2025. So this is really the new frontier for telecom. And that's the kind of stuff. We're involved with IOCL, very large PSU. We work with Amul, just imagine the big distribution chain and imagine what they managed to do in the last 18 months in pandemic. So on the global innovation front, some of the stuff that I see and the things that are happening are unimaginable. I'm privy to a lot of this and I feel very privileged and always get goosebumps talking about some of the things that are going to come and I can't talk about. But I want to also say one thing about the R&D bit that you mentioned. We do a significant amount of our product development and R&D out of India. We have a very, very large team which sits out of India, who's involved in cutting edge research across AI, blockchain, quantum. It all happens here in India. So that's the other thing I want to underline.
Yeah, you also oversee the developer marketing. Just want to understand, how do you see the landscape change, and especially now with the pandemic and the last 2 years? Now there is no boundary when it comes to working with the brightest of developers, engineers, and India is looked at as the hub for the best engineers. How do you look at the landscape now?
So two things. One is that let's just look at the segments within developers. Not all developers are the same. So about three segments come to my mind. First is the first wave of developers, in fact, who started working with global SIs. And they were, of course, focused on delivering client outcomes globally. The second segment or second wave that came also was the active startup developer community. That built significantly for India.
Yeah.
And now there is a very large third segment, through the technology teams that both large Indian enterprises and global MNCs are setting up in India. And they are focused on leveraging these capabilities and talent to solve problems in India as well as across, geographies. Now, each of this cohort is growing. It's not like, any one is growing and any one is plateaued. And they're also unique in their own way. But one insight there, they're all united by the desire to leverage technology to improve the world, Shradha. That's the interesting thing. I also want to share with you very happily that in the last 2.5 years, and I took over 3 years back as a CMO, we've improved in India the overall mind share among us developers compared to our competitors. This is as per the latest event study. So we've got a few things right. And I think the insight of the fact that, they want to leverage technology to improve the world, I think that's the one that's important.
You said a very interesting thing, that the mind share has increased in this community. Yeah. And yeah. I'd love if you can share with all of us one example of how, you've shared or increased this mind share. And also, Deepali, what is challenging about this agenda?
One is the challenging part of the agenda is that their attention today is not focused on freebies or large events, unlike what a lot of people believe and think, I think it is about providing them the right platforms, the right technologies to innovate, and also ensuring that we have an active group of evangelists in-house sitting at IBM, which we do, by the way, who can help them navigate these platforms, So I think our success is based on the fact that we are more focused on deeper engagement with communities, that want to leverage these platforms, right? And on that, going back to that social problems, world problems that, they really want to solve. So that's where we share a commitment with them, and many of you will know, the call for code focus that we have. And that's really about problem solving for society at scale, so that's what we do. So the call for code initiative has been really big for us. Even our hackathons, for example, we have one on just now, right? Mm-hmm. They see tremendous participation because of our passion, which is aligned with the developer community. Our current hackathon, we've got 8,000 developers participating in just 20 days.
Wow.
And wow. I'm hoping by the time we finish in another fortnight, this number goes up to 30,000, So that's the kind of developers. Now, what is motivating them to come there? We identified 4 areas that are very relevant to them. So we're talking to them to build solutions for education, healthcare, customer experience, because they want to solve problems for the enterprises also, and future of work. Now, these are the 4 hot topics So when we looked at it, these were the four hot topics that we looked. So I think the challenge really is in staying current with them, Shraddha, and understanding where are they coming from.
The world has moved to cloud, so we're all seeing that. But somehow, we've been talking to SMEs and businesses, and they're saying that this pandemic has actually accelerated their now moving the whole infrastructure on cloud. What have you seen? Are you seeing this acceleration and accelerating fast, very, very fast?
You know, I describe it slightly differently. I say there's been an acceleration, and most enterprises have moved the needle on technology adoption and investment. And of course, move to the cloud is part of it. There have been enterprises who were ready and were ahead of the curve. I think they've gone ahead of the curve even more. There were organizations who were perhaps not ready and were thinking about it, and they, accelerated their thinking process and, are investing. So we see all these 2-3 segments, where enterprises are ahead of the curve, have invested rightfully, and some of the ones who are still thinking. But the technology conversation is at front and center. The cloud conversation is, at front and center, right? So one of the examples that I can quote, and there are organizations which are becoming future ready, and I know that I have very limited examples that I can quote versus the ones that we work with. But one such example is Parley, which is where we are partnering them on a digital transformation journey. Now, our focus has always been on building scale with platforms, so we're working with them across multiple digitization touch points, from cloud to AI to security. And our services team is working on creating a seamless digital experience, with them. So, I think the point for enterprises is that, work with us to solve problems at scale. I think that's the bit. When we use the blockchain technology for building food trust in the US, you have to read that case study, and I recommend it to everyone. Just go to ibm.com, type food trust, and read the one on what we managed to do in terms of the benefit for society and for the enterprise. Huge cost saving for the enterprise and for the society. Similarly, the work that we're doing with Quantum with University of Japan, and how that's being done in terms of involvement of the ecosystem and various enterprises, future looking work that we're doing. I think, again, innovation at scale, technology at scale, cloud at scale, is what really comes to my mind.
So today we are living in a world where data privacy is no more a conversation or a topic, but it is a reality, and we have to think about it. I want to understand, Deepali, how is IBM looking at this, and how are you working with your enterprises and businesses to ensure that this is right up at the center of whatever you do?
Thanks for asking that question, Shradha, because I am extremely passionate about on the security front also. And I think, every CXO, not just the CISO, not just the CIO, every CXO should get to know about, data privacy and security, the concerns that are facing any organization today. So, like you rightly said, a key consideration for any digital journey today is security and data privacy, and this is not just about the company data, but the data that the organization stores about customer and stakeholders. The recent breaches have showed us that, right? So it's just too important. Security is just too important to not bring to the center of any digitization initiative, and that's what we are working on. With almost all our clients, we've spoken to hundreds of our clients across the world. And the other thing is that there is no one size that fits all solutions for all clients. That's the second thing that you must keep in mind, right? So from security governance, such as visibility to incident management, to interaction with third parties, to identification, access management to data, compliance, all that has to be fully, thought through. The need of the hour is to create a stronger security posture and limit potential risk. Businesses must protect privacy, like we already said that, but how do you do that? So there is a term that gets used in the security industry. We use it all the time at IBM. We say that to assure the greatest levels of security and protect customer privacy, businesses in India should consider adopting a zero trust approach. Okay, so a zero trust approach aims to wrap security around every user, every device, every connection, every time. Just think of that approach, and I think we'll be through in terms of thinking through threat management. And like I said, it should not be the subject only for a CISO or a CIO or a CTO. Boards should get involved, CEOs should get involved in this discussion, and all CXOs should get to know about security management.
You've been a CMO in different industries. How have you been able to adapt? And let me give an answer before you give an answer.
Sure.
You come across as an extremely, we hear the word passion loosely just thrown around, but you just come across as a very passionate person who is very invested in what she's doing, and is extremely curious about the learning and being on top of things. But tell me, how do you become a successful CMO across industries?
Actually, you said it. I agree with all those three things. Okay. Passion and curiosity, I think, and being very interested in the job, that I'm doing. I don't treat my job as my job. I think I treat it as my own company. The mindset is very entrepreneurial, therefore, but having said that, specifics on marketing, I think one thing that I've learned and seen is that the basics of marketing in any industry remain the same. It is all about the customer. Get to know your customer, and I think the answers will just come to you very, very easily. I think the second thing that has helped me specifically is that I've actually gone and set up e-commerce businesses, at L&T Insurance and at Mahindra Holidays. So that understanding of, the P&L management, the understanding of sales, just makes for a very easy conversation with my peers, when I'm working for a very large MNC, such as IBM. I know, the dhanda, as I call it, that needs to happen. So I'm very cognizant of that. I've had great bosses, who've also helped me along the way learn. And that's true, at IBM also. And if we get the time, I want to talk about it. There's a concept called learning agility, which is essentially about a framework. Learn something here, and as a framework, you apply somewhere else. Very easily understood is that I can use a framework that I learned at IBM on processes, and I can actually apply it in my kitchen. Just think of that. And if you come from that framework, you can go across industries and apply frameworks.
How do you see the role of women in technology improving, changing, growing? And do you think that as government, as at a governmental level, we need to do something with public policies to get more women in tech?
So yes and yes, but one is that we're a very large country.
Yes.
So in absolute numbers, for example, India has the largest number of women developers who undertake coding challenges. Okay, I'm quoting something from HackerRank, right? But as a percentage, when we start looking at things, we have a long way to go. So I think keep that perspective in mind, which also tells us that we've made progress over the years, but more progress needs to be made. Now, IBM also does it part, where we're committed to encouraging and participating with the government, with the NGOs. We have, a girls in STEM program at school level that, we participate in from CSR perspective. But I must also want to say this to you, Shradha, that, today, when I participate in various forums, every significant member that I interact with from the government, or with the CEOs that I talk to, there's encouragement at a policy level for gender diversity and inclusion. It's not like this lack of encouragement, I've been working for 25 years odd, and I want to say that tremendous progress has been made, right? And I'm very proud to work at IBM, where diversity initiatives really come to, fructification. We've got so many awards globally and in India. But there is a lot more that needs to be done. In fact, we're going to be releasing a study for India, IBM IBV, as we call it. We release studies off and on, and there's one that's coming on gender diversity. The global one is out. The India version is going to be out at the end of the month. And there are interesting insights there.
But let's go from IBM to just the conversation about women in technology. And I want to understand from you, Deepali, because I know you are a champion here in this, you believe in this. What are some of the things that needs to be done and we can do?
So I have 4 points to make since you asked me this, okay? Because I also just did a keynote somewhere else, and I think similar questions got discussed. So I'm going to use Yourstory as a platform to make those points. And I'm going to borrow from the study that's coming, okay, that's still coming. We've, looked at 429 organizations, and we've looked at data from 2019 and 2021. Okay, we did 2 legs of the research, and that's where, these insights are emerging from. First one, we need men to champion the women.
Yes.
And I think that distinction is very important, because without the male leaders role modeling, reinforcing, rewarding the behaviors that show more active allyship, the
Yeah.
younger ones won't have the example to follow. So
Yeah.
that's number one. We need an active effort to have male leaders and sponsors, for gender diversity. Secondly, we need more focus on shifting mindset, not just policy and programs. When we look at this 429 organizations, policy and programs are happening,
Hmm.
but with that alone, the pace of change is slow. And that's the whole issue. So compared to 2019, data shows that more organizations are instituting more and more initiatives for gender equity and inclusion. But, it's not necessarily translated into better outcomes. So I think the focus is therefore has to be equally, not more or less, equally on changing mindsets, right? Third, I want to appeal to you. There is some data, and I want to just share that, to make my point. So numerous studies confirm that organizations with higher scores in gender equity gain in terms of performance. Performance is better, right? Happier employees are in those
Yeah.
organizations,
Yeah.
right? And McKinsey has a study, and everybody has a study, right? Our own study also shows that more men who work for such organizations with better gender diversity, are more satisfied with their work. But my point is that these assumptions and data has not led to a shift.
Yeah.
Now, either it's not well known enough, or the change is too uncomfortable. you know
Yeah.
I don't know where the answer is. Fourthly, it's critical that women see other women in their organizations in key leadership positions. So more women entrepreneurs in India need to see more women entrepreneurs as role models. And that's where I think you and I play a role. I can speak for myself. It inspires me. For example, our Asia Pacific CEO is a woman, Brenda Harvey, and I'm like totally impressed by her. Her predecessor was also a woman. Our outgoing global chairperson was a woman, right? And in my podcast, for example, I've got several women there: Dev Jani, Radhika Gupta of Edelweiss, Apurva Purohit, Nandini Dias, Megha Tata of Discovery, and then I have this very young one, Sucheta, she's at Branch International. These young CEOs, women CEOs, and I don't talk to them about work life balance. I, in fact, speak to the men about work life balance. That's my appeal to you also, that you must cover more women entrepreneurs and women leaders as part of your mainstream coverage and not as a special section. I think that's what is, really required. So the ecosystem needs to get together to change this landscape, and I know that there are a lot, at VCs, at incubators, angel programs. I think it's the collective responsibility of everybody to, change mindsets. I think that's what we need to do so that the funnel improves. If the funnel improves, the top layer will happen.
You alluded to this, so I have to ask about your podcast, being CEO, and I've seen it being shared massively. Tell us about this, and what got you to start this, and what are your learnings doing this podcast?
It's a very well researched topic by me, because I felt 3 years ago that your story was covering only founders, okay? And that everywhere I looked, the stories of the unicorn founders, the stories of startup founders, across the world was being very well researched. And therefore, the whole hot topic was innovation, disruption, and what they brought to the table and how they went about doing, their job. And I felt that ultimately India Inc. is also being run by the 500 companies who are listed on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
And those 500 CEOs are not all family owned business, CEOs. They are professionals,
Yeah.
right? And their stories are not being told. And what makes them the leaders that they are is not being told. And I
Yeah.
think that's what is going to inspire younger professionals who are entering the workforce. The MBA students who are going to enter the workforce will feel inspired by that.
Yeah.
So I had intended at some point of time to either write a column for a magazine or do a book. Okay. Well, that didn't happen because now it's very well documented. On March 6th of last year, I was sharing a flight with Shri, who's the founder at Avaz.com. And I was telling him, oh, I don't know how I'll write my book. I'm not finding the time. I don't know how I'll do the column. And, he said these golden words to me. He says, why write when you can speak? Okay,
Yeah.
Deepali.
And you speak fantastically.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he told me
Exactly.
that.
I'm saying
Yeah,
that.
and that's how the podcast happened. I'm very grateful. We are 30 episodes down with a retention rate of 59%. And regarding the learnings that I've had, I think every session is a personal mentoring session for me, Shraddha. I do a prep session with every CEO, and I think the nuggets that they share, which they also sometimes tell me is not going to go into the podcast, is beautiful. Okay,
Yeah.
I think it's just absolute, a learning session for me. But I have two, three observations which are across, and I am going to recommend to everyone, please go and listen to the episodes. There are nuggets there on leadership, on conflict resolution, on decision making frameworks, on how CEOs hire, on who do they go to for advice. All that is covered in the podcast, right? And everybody's different and everybody's journey is unique. But one of the observations, Shraddha, not a single one of them has come late for any of the meetings.
Wow.
Okay, they were all on time every time.
Wow.
Nobody has cancelled on me last minute ever. Okay, no one, right? The second observation that I have, and I mean, this is wonderful lessons for everybody who's listening. Each one of them paid 100% attention to the meeting without any distraction.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? The prep meeting as well as the actual recording, of
They're
course.
mindfully present with you.
Mindfully present.
Yeah.
Each one of them prepared for the podcast recording.
Yeah.
Okay. The sheer professionalism and the work ethic, that stands out to me. I mean, if I say what are the top qualities, then these are the three that stand out across, all CEOs that I have interviewed.
I want to ask you, what has been your learnings as a CMO? What's been your greatest joys, pains, challenges? What has this journey been like?
Thanks, Shraddha, for asking me that question. Um I think the greatest lesson in that journey has been that the journey is important. And
Mhm.
as I say, some milestones across the way are important. So
Yeah.
it's not about a month, it's not about a quarter. I look at my life in blocks of 5 years.
Yeah.
So if I think some of the high points that I remember, setting up of the e-commerce business, at L&T Insurance. And then over a 3-year period, ensuring that we were beating the targets that we were given. That we set out new processes and frameworks for ensuring that our business was a success, from risk perspective also. You actually buying risk when you're selling insurance, right? So I think that was a great joy to me because it was something new that I was doing and I hadn't done before. Using my Marwadi genes, the numbers that I have in my blood, I actually set up that business. Very proud to say that some of the things that I set up then 10 years ago, that team, even after getting sold to HDFC General Insurance, that team still uses the management systems that I had set up for them.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, my lesson in there is that I used to look at it and I say, my mamas, for example, they all ran stores. I said, this is like a daily dukan. You have to look at this business like a daily dukan. So that's how I actually set up my, Excel sheet management processes, at that point of time. The other highlight and the greatest wins, I think, is coming back from both my sabbaticals very smoothly. I have done two sabbaticals, a year and a half long with my son when he was born 17 years ago, and then another one when my mom was unwell, in 2016. I think people credit it now. My coach now calls it resilience, so I can use the term now. But I think that's been a high point because I know that it's tough. And I know that personally, that it is tough to come back from a sabbatical. So there is a lesson in there separately about what you should do during your sabbaticals to ensure that you smoothen the path out. But, I think that resilience is important. And third is, Shraddha, it's a team sport. You cannot do it alone. You cannot win alone. So if you want to find partners in your failures, which you should learn from, and then you should also find partners in success, so and that's really important to me too.
How were you able to navigate in the pandemic and get all the stakeholders together? Because we are all so scattered today, not just physically, like in different ways.
So I think Shraddha, quick on the block. I think that quick on the block is very, very important. And stakeholders are clients, stakeholders are sales teams.
Yeah.
Also being a little selfless. I think imagine last year, March and April and May when it happened. it wasn't about the marketing team. It wasn't about the marketing campaigns. It was about ensuring that our clients don't have disruption, that their BCPs work. It was about ensuring that our sales teams and our tech teams have a way of staying in touch with them. It was about thinking as to how will we deal with this in future, and some of the quick things that we did at that point of time. And I want to talk about the team, so I will talk about that last, save the best for the last. But I think for example, me and the HR leader for IBM in India, very quickly in April, May, we did a large scale workshop, for our sales team to say, okay, how to do virtual selling, how to do social selling, stuff that people did in August and September, we actually did in April and May. So I think that quickness on the block important is very important, internally. And sometimes you have to take a back seat also. I think some of our IBMers, I want to salute them. Some of them chose to, for 15 days, leaving their families alone, to be at the BCP sites of the financial organizations in this country with who we service.
Wow.
They were, quarantine is not the right word, but they chose to be there to ensure that all of us, you and me, are able to do our financial transactions,
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so so I think that is what my memories are. The second thing that I want to mention before I come to the team is that I think we think ahead, and marketing team in IBM also thinks ahead. So in October of 2019, okay, which is much before the pandemic, we decided that we were going to do a fully virtual event,
Ah.
because we said that 2 or 3 years later that's going to come, so I don't attempt it. So in February, pandemic had not happened, we did a fully virtual data and AI event attended by some, I forget the number, 5,000, 7,000 people in the
Wow.
country. We were, of course, applauded within IBM, because by the time the pandemic came, that had become like the pioneering effort. So we were applauded there, and we were applauded by the rest of the industry. I got so many calls from fellow CMOs and a lot of CXOs to say, Deepali, how is things happening and what are things happening? So I think looking ahead, and then to the team. I think so. The team culture is extremely important to me. Employee engagement, both from IBM perspective and my perspective, is one of the key things in ensuring. I've already told you that I call it a team sport. I think the team's not energized and inspired, we can't do it. And I've done tons and tons of things. We've done virtual Man Ki Baat. Yes, we borrowed from Mr. Modi. So we do non-work conversations. In my mind, I thought about it and I said, the water cooler conversation equivalent. How do we do it? I think I'm more familiar with my team's kids, their ages, their interests, their faces today than when I was in the pre-pandemic world. I run a beautiful birthday program for my team, because one day of the year we celebrate the team member, before the pandemic and after the pandemic. I've had speakers from across the world come and speak to my team. And Shradha, we must invite you also to come and speak to the team about your early entrepreneurship journey. They'd love to hear from you. Just when the pandemic started, we organized lots of basics and necessities, office supplies, allowance for them to get headphones. We did books, so we did the goodies also. We have a pizza party once in a while, so those goodies. But I think more importantly, getting to know them, doing a conversation with them and telling them it's okay, for you to be telling me that today you're not feeling well, you're not feeling good. And my team credits back and tells me that, Deepali, you were able to show your vulnerability, because I shared with them on days when I wasn't feeling well, on days when I was not feeling so happy and positive, on days when I felt bad. So they said that you gave us permission by sharing what you were going through. You gave us permission for us to be okay with that and for us to be shared. But I have to credit, I think, the culture at IBM, which also allows us to do all this. So I've shared with you, client stakeholders, our sales teams and tech teams, and I think what we do with the team. And the team has rewarded back, last year in November 2020, when the employee engagement survey happened, the India marketing team had a score of 96.4. The index was 96.4 out of 100. That's the highest of any team in the world.
How do you see the role, the change in the role of a marketer, and especially tech marketer, because this world is changing so fast. And what are some of the things that you think will define a successful marketing professional?
Thanks for asking that question, Shraddha. I always say this, that the brands came first and the David Arker's identity model came later. So, I really looked back and said, okay, what are the things that are important? And I've devised what I call a triple A formula, or a
Ah,
framework, actually,
ah,
right?
ah.
And the triple A, stands for authenticity, agility, and ability. Okay. And it will work for your brand, it will work for your personal brand, and it will work for your team also. So authenticity is all about, sharing the vulnerability, being true to the brand that you are and the vision that you have, being honest and being simple and being uncomplicated. As a CMO, you ought to be like that. As a marketing team, you ought to be like that. There are vulnerabilities inside the organization that you can also share about the answers that you may not have and the things that you do well, both ways, right? And as a brand, you ought to be that. So, be focused on authenticity. Second is agility. And the way I define agility is that framework example. The learning agility bit, that is taking framework from one place and being able to apply to the other. The second way I explain agility is this: being comfortable with change. Think of a Kathak dancer. She moves from one pose to the other, right? And the ease with which she moves actually gets the audience to define what a beautiful dancer she is, right? Because in her mind, she changes without an effort. Can
Yeah.
you bring that effortlessness in the change that you have to make inside your organizations and in yourself? Do you welcome the change? Do you embrace the change, or does it get you down? I think if you can build that agility into yourself, your teams, your team structure, I think is the second part of the framework that you've got to get it right to get future right. And the third is ability. So being a lifelong learner yourself and as an organization, I ensure that it's not just me who learns. I was telling you about the speakers that I invite for the team, that, or learning about marketing technology, or learning about the new things that are happening in marketing or martech stack, learning about your brand and product. That's what I call ability. Are you building ability constantly? I think so. These are the three things that I want to talk about when I look at vision of what marketing will be in future. I believe that marketing is going to be the connector, the chief client experience, team, or whatever it is that you want to call it. But I think if they need to excel in the domain that they are in, then look at be authentic, be agile, and keep on adding ability.
The one book that you're reading right now?
I'm reading a book called Presence by Amy Cuddy. And I'm really inspired by what she has to say in her TED Talk also. The one book that I recommend to everyone to read is Blue Ocean Strategy. I'm very inspired by that book because that is the one that tells you to look at the world with newer lens all the time. It tells you that you need to be focused on the future and that, you're going to get disrupted. So you might as well disrupt yourself.
Thank you so much, Deepali Naair. This was such an honor. This was a true learning experience and a very joyous experience. Thank you so much.